I had this experience about a month ago. I was sitting in my office going through some mail, and I stumbled across this illustration that I want to share with you guys. This is the copy. The original is a little bit bigger. It's really, really beautiful. The picture of two men, and I know it's really small. There's one man lying on the ground who looks like he's really suffering, and there's another man holding up something that looks like water to his lips. He's holding up a cup to his lips. And I saw this picture, and I was asked by Jessica Sanchez said, what's this picture? It's a really beautiful illustration. We received it from somebody who is incarcerated, who's a really wonderful artist. And it's a really amazing gift that was mailed to Homeboy. And she said, what is this picture? And I said, oh, it's the story of the Good Samaritan. And for me, this is a story that I've heard many times throughout my life. And so I started to tell the story, and initially it felt like I was telling the story that I heard again and again and again. But as I retold the story, I realized this is a different story than I've ever heard before. So I'm going to share with you the Homeboy version of the Good Samaritan. There was a gathering together of people, a dinner party one night, and Jesus was hanging out with some religious folks. And one of the guys said to him, hey, Jesus, here's a quick question for you. If I want eternal life, what do I have to do? And Jesus said to the guy, well, you know what you have to do. You're a teacher of religion. You tell me. And so the guy said, well, I need to love God with all of who I am, and I need to love my neighbor as I love myself. And Jesus said, great, go ahead and do that. That's how you'll really live. And the guy said, well, and he was looking for a loophole. He said, well, but who's my neighbor? So Jesus told a story. You see, there was this group of people called the Samaritans. There was a group of people called the Jews, and they were arch enemies. And they lived in two countries that were right next door to each other. And so if you were a Jew and you were trying to go see your family who lived in the other neighborhood, on the other side of Samaria, you would go around the long way. You wouldn't go through. Sound familiar? Yeah. And so they would actually take extra time to go through different neighborhoods where they had friends, instead of going through the rival neighborhood where they could run the risk of getting killed. So, in this particular occasion, a Jew was on his way to go see some family in another city. And on the way there, he ends up getting jumped. And the guys who jump him beat him up, take all of his clothes, and they leave him for dead in the middle of the road. And hours go by, and no one comes. And finally, a priest comes by. And this guy's lying in the middle of the road. And the priest happens by, and he sees the guy. And he ends up just kind of stepping over him. Hours go by. Someone else happens by. Politician. Politician sees the man lying in the road. And what does he do? Same thing. Steps over him. So, oops. Hours go by, and the guy is left for dead. And finally, someone else comes by. And this guy is an enemy. This guy's a Samaritan. But he stops. And he notices. And he leans down, and he opens his backpack. And he takes out some water. And he gives it to the guy lying on the road, his enemy. And then he picks up this guy, and he carries him into the closest city. And there in the closest city, he goes to a motel, and he tells the motel owner, look, I'm on my way to my job right now, so I want you to take really good care of this guy. So here's all the money that I have in my possession at the moment. And when I come back from my job today, today's payday. So I'll pay you any of the difference, but take good care of him. So he goes to work, and over the course of the day, the motel owner takes really good care of the guy who had been lying in the road. And over the course of the day, he recovers. And so Jesus turns to the group of people that he's been talking to, and he focuses his attention on the man who asked the question, who's my neighbor? And he asks him again, who is the good neighbor? And the man responds, it was the third man, the enemy, the one who paid attention, the one who did something. So here's my question for all of us today. What does it look like to be a good neighbor? What does it look like to be a neighbor to the people who may be considered rivals? What does it look like to be a good neighbor to those folks in your life, perhaps family, who are really challenging to get along with. Because sometimes the people who are closest to us, in geography, in terms of blood, are the most difficult people to get along with, are the most difficult people to care for. But here at Homeboy Industries, we are no longer divided by race, by gang, by class, by religion, by violence. We're family. So, go out and be a good neighbor.